Oh, hey guys, Nick and Drew here with CarryTrainer. You know, we've been running tons of rifle classes this past couple of years, and I see the same thing over and over again, dry guns. I'm not sure where that came from. It's like it's cool now to not clean your gun and not oil your gun. And I think sometimes guys are afraid to over lube. I hear, well, if I put too much oil in there, it's going to attract dirt. Our friend Ernest Langdon from Langdon Tactical likes to say, either way, dirt's gonna get in there. Do you want it dirty and dry or dirty and lubed? Of course, the argument is that the lube will attract more dirt. Unless you're in a war zone, we're out running these guns on ranges. Let's keep them wet. I'm gonna break down a couple of guns, show you some points to look at. I'm gonna get a fresh bottle of Gunfighter Gun Oil open. Of course, we're gonna use that because it's our brand. Got a travel plug that these ship in for shipping. We'll get that out of there. So this is a little bit of what you get if you order this stuff. And we give these away for certain giveaways. This is a small needle bottle. We're actually working on a new one as well. But this one's great because it seals. And it also allows you guys to see the purity of this stuff. So the reason I like this Gunfighter Gun Oil, the reason that we procured the brand, it's 100% synthetic, which is awesome. It's also not biodegradable. So there's a lot of oils, and there's military contracts for oils, they have to be biodegradable. Well, that's cute. I don't want biodegradable. I want oil that's going to stick together, so you can see that stuff's nice and clear. But this is not a sales pitch for Gunfighter Gun Oil. No preservatives, or additives rather, not preservatives. There's nothing added to make it smell a certain way or look a certain way. Awesome operating temperature. The reason I choose this for these guns is this stuff goes well below freezing and well over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. It sticks to the surfaces, it coats them, it impregnates them. This is state-of-the-art synthetic lubricant. So we're gonna break a couple guns down. First one I got is super dirty. So this isn't a cleaning video. This is, hey, I gotta shoot this thing. I don't have time to do a big cleaning job. I need to oil it. Where do I need to do that? So of course, safety check. We're gonna make sure this gun's unloaded and we'll break it down here. The amount of people that get injured, by the way, cleaning guns or lubing them is staggering. Clear the chamber. Treat every gun as if it's always loaded. Wow. So as of late, I've got students that are having guns break and they've been using mine, which I need to start charging people. This thing would get me fired if I was, if my job was keeping it clean. Thank God Radian makes such a good rifle. And this thing is gonna get a cleaning job before the next session. So the bolt, I'm gonna just wipe this off real quick so that we can see what we've got here. And I'm gonna show you a couple things about the bolt. And the reason I grabbed this dirty gun is because of what we're gonna see, what we're looking for. So when every company's stuff's different, but what you're gonna notice is bearing surfaces, wear surfaces. So this bolt, as it rides in the receiver, there are contact points. You know, like right here, this is not touching anything. Back here, this is not touching anything. But I can see, and I'm hoping it's coming through Drew's lens, where the finish has been wore off. And most bolts are made out of hard tool steel. This is like the stuff that you would make a chisel out of or a saw blade or something like that. Very hard steel. A couple things to keep in mind. Be careful with this, don't drop it. You can break parts off of this thing, dent it, and really cause some grief to yourself. So work over a surface that you're not gonna drop things onto a hard floor. Because of the condition of this, I am gonna pull this thing apart real quick, just so I can make sure I get lube into all the areas that it needs. So broke the bolt down, right? Very dirty. The thing about lube is, even when it's very dirty, the lubricant, if it's a good lube, is gonna help that carbon. If you look at that, just me wiping it, and this has been lubed with Gunfighter Gun Oil, that coating helps that carbon wipe off. Now look, I'm not a military guy where I was inundated with this notion that the gun needs to be scrubbed clean. Next week, we've got a class in Nunn, Colorado. This gun's gonna get 1,500 rounds or more through it. So that said, and I will do a better cleaning job on this, but I wanted to show you this gun because of the condition it's in. The charging handle, same thing as the bolt. You see wear marks here. Part of this is how I hold the gun. So because I shoot this gun lefty, I'm putting more pressure on this side and it's torquing. As such, the left face here of this charging handle is more worn than the right. If I was a righty, this would maybe get canted into the upper more. But I can see, okay, I need to lube that. I need to make sure that that stays wet. Looking at the gun itself, a lot of guys forget about lubricating what's in the buffer tube. Why? Well, as gas blows back and that bolt comes back into the tube, right? So as this gun is reciprocating, this sucker ends up back here, right? That means gas can get into the tube, the spring, etc. You don't need to lube the buffer itself so much as the spring. So I'll pop that out so that we can do that. You know what, so I make this easy on myself, I'm gonna take the upper completely off. I'm going to pop that sling loose, so we'll set that upper down for a moment. And a good idea to put these pins back in. It's very easy if you drop that to shear those off. So using your finger to hold that buffer tube back, we'll push the detent in and be careful now. And we're just gonna pull that out. So this again, I lube this stuff. This would be a good time to take a brush, clean that out in there. And you can see I keep this lubed. I'm gonna wipe all this filth off. You can see it's dirty, man. That's all carbon from when this gun is doing its job, making its way back in there. Pull that off, just get some of that dirt off. But because I've got awesome synthetic lube on there, look at that, it comes clean. I don't have to spray any toxic garbage on there. I don't have to spray brake clean on it. Look at it, it just wiped clean. And that's not a joke. This gun has buku rounds through it. So I'm gonna wipe this down, and then when we put it back together here in a second, I'm going to lube this. So here's my secret sauce for lubing things that like the spring that might need a wider surface area. A cheap chip brush. That's boar's hair is really what that's made of. You can buy these for like 20 cents, 50 cents. They come in different widths. This is a 1-inch. Look at this, I can just kind of baste it on there. And I'm not trying to get this slathered. I'm just putting a little lube on so that as this runs back and forth inside of the tube, it has a little bit of friction reduction. You dig? Easy peasy. We'll take this sucker, push it right back in. Nice. So in here now, we do not want a bunch of lube down into the trigger pack for a lot of reasons. And right now, because of the amount of rounds that are through this thing, it is really dirty. It does need to be cleaned out. One spot that you do want to make sure you get lube is right here, right on the top of the hammer. And the reason being, I'm gonna set the bolt in here, but you see the bottom of the bolt. Again, another wear surface where you see that finish has begun to wear off. That is because it is rubbing on the top of the hammer. So if we look, as this bolt reciprocates, that's reciprocating over the top. So you can see that that's rubbing on top of the hammer. So again, we're not trying to like slather a bunch of oil on it because it's gonna run down into the trigger pack. But what we wanna do is make sure that that contact point gets addressed. So a little here and a little on the bottom of the bolt. Pop that up. Man, that thing is filthy. Dirty, dirty. I'm gonna later break it down and give it a great clean job. But same thing, I can take this chip brush, I can hit that. Something to keep in mind, as you start running this gun, a lot of this oil gets just cooked off. Just cooked off. So I'm gonna hit the bottom of this bolt. And here's the way I think about it, okay? A lot of guys are like, oh, too much lube, it's gonna gum up the works. You saw how easily I can wipe this bad boy down. That said, I wipe it down just like that as I'm reassembling. This is my process. If you've got your own, that's okay. Same thing here. I'm just gonna give it a wipey wipe. I'm checking the gas rings as I go because it's really annoying if you've got broken gas rings and you're trying to train. Those are perishable parts. Have some of those in your travel bag. I'm just gonna give all these parts just a little wipe. Firing pin. Knock some of that carbon off right now while it's in my hand. And you do this on a tailgate without me talking and narrating what's happening and Drew having to fix focus and such. This might take 2 minutes, right? I am taking a little bit longer so that you guys can get the full benefit. And those of you watching that are like, why is he not scrubbing it? Because the point of what we're showing you right now, I put a little oil on there to just wipe it back off to knock some more of that filth. The point of what I'm showing you is that if I get out of the truck, I show up at a training gig and I need to address something like this, I need to be able to do it in, 5-10 minutes, not in an hour or something back at the hotel or in the range room. And that's all this is. This is a quick, down and dirty lube job to keep the gun working as we're training. Same thing here, clean. Clean by clean, I mean just wipe it off, put a little slather on there, a little slather job. And we'll reassemble. And I'm gonna show you in a second another gun. Make sure that that thing's moving good. Make sure that you've got it in the right way. Here's one way you can always tell, just so you know about how to put that in. If you look at how that goes in the gun, it's gonna be going to your right side, right? So make sure that when you put it back together, the extractor's on the right side. So I've got that wiped down. This guy here I've wiped off, same thing. I'm just gonna dress her down here with a little bit of oil. And the brush is nice because it's just a light coating. You see what I'm doing? Nothing fancy. At the end of the day, wet is always gonna be better than dry. When you're in some environment where you're using the gun because your life depends on it, that might be a different animal. But when we're training, I wanna do everything I can do. Oh Lord. I wanna do everything I can to preserve the longevity of these guns and allow them to work smoothly without wearing out prematurely. So, gross. I'm gonna take this here and I'm gonna hit that rail where the charging handle rides, right? And I do hit the chamber. I hit the star chamber, and the reason I do that is it actually, in my opinion, helps me keep this gun cleaner as it goes through its life. One other spot that I like to put a little oil is right on these pins, the hinge pins. These 2 points right here are super important, muy importante. You work that in, see it ran all the way through. And a little bit of excess oil, in my opinion, isn't gonna hurt anything. This stuff burns off, slings off. But Nick, you said it works till over 500 degrees. Yeah, you start running the gun, dumping magazines, stuff gets hot. That's why we wanna keep it wet, right? That's why we're doing this. Now when that's in there, do you hear it? Does it sound nice? It sounds nice to me, and that's what we're looking for. We wanna make sure that we don't have the wear points. We want all these wear points wet. So now, let's put this dude back together again. A couple other spots that you can hit is pins. One of the spots that is important when you do a detail strip is this pivot point right here, this pin. And there's a lot of different triggers on the market now, so know what you've got. But the trigger pack pins could use a little bit of lubrication. All of these movable points, the mag release, bolt catch, things of that nature, depending on the gun that you have and how it's put together, all of those parts could use a little bit of oil. And that's where this dude comes in handy, because you're not looking at slathering oil on it, but I can take this guy and I can put a little bit of oil. See that? I can control it. I can put a little bit of oil on these wear parts. See that?
Yeah.
Come to the other side. And now to some people, they might say, oh, that's not necessary. Look, I'm just showing you what I do. If you don't like it, don't do it. What I want to do is I want to keep this dude wet. I want to keep this dude wet because that's going to reduce friction. Reduced friction is going to reduce heat, and heat is what kills these guns and kills parts. So keep them wet and they're going to live longer. I'm going to get this guy back together again, and we'll function check the bolt. Make sure that sucker's good and forward. Oh, it'd help if I pulled the pin out. All right. Oh, look at that. So now we're gonna function check it. Got the gun back together again. Cycle the bolt, trigger back, cycle the bolt, reset. You know, in doing this, I might need to replace a spring in this trigger pack. That reset feels maybe like it's getting a little bit sluggish going forward. A lot of rounds through it, and that's why we want to do this. I'd rather find something here than on the range, or God forbid, when I need this gun to protect life and limb. So I put all this lube on some of these outside surfaces. I got to grab this thing and run it. I wipe it down. And in doing so, look, I'm kind of old school. I'm a carpenter by trade, right? Grew up with guys that still hand sharpen saw blades and chisels on the job site. Oil's good. Oil's a good thing. Just wiping this down. I'm putting lubricant onto all kinds of surfaces. Yes, they might be made of aluminum or other non-corrosive or corrosive resistant materials, but I just kind of gave everything a little bit of bath of oil. You got some parts on these guns that are tool steel, like this really nice Yankee Hill front sight. This guy gets rust on it all the time, and it's nothing that they're doing that's bad. I just need to remember to give her a little bath. These parts here up front, the muzzle device, not gonna hurt to put a little on there. Do keep in mind though, this stuff is going to get super hot and baked off. But like I said, I find that if I do this as I'm going through my lube process, it gets easier and easier to clean. Not all oils are made the same. That's why I use this stuff. Some of you guys may look at this and say, not necessary. Cool, told you I'm just showing you what I do. Any part on here that can get rusty, I put some lube on. And like I said, some of the stuff that is the high carbon steel like this is where you're gonna have those issues. Doesn't that look nice? Just a quick wipe down, nothing fancy. And again, this was not a cleaning job. All I did was just kind of dust her off and wipe it down with some new wetness. Close that dust cover, put her to safe, and she's ready to get put back in service or put in the safe. Depending on how you go about your business, maybe you got a chamber flag that goes in the gun at this point. Maybe it gets loaded back up and gets put in a condition of carry for your cruiser. This gun has been abused, and it's been a great gun. I'll grab another one now from a different make and model. We'll grab this LWRC. This one's got a few less rounds through it, but I'm just gonna real quick now, without narrating what I'm doing, I'll go through the same process just so you can see how fast it is. Wow, that's dirty. So that gun is empty. I am gonna pull this off real quick. You know, it's fun just talking as I'm going. Different ways people do different things, the way different guys set stuff up. You know, what's cool or not cool. At the end of the day, I like pretty basic, simple stuff. Poor thing. Poor thing. Oop, oop. I am gonna just put a little bit of lube on this. This is not cleaner, this is lubricant, but tell you what it does as you wipe is the dirt sticks to it and sticks to the rag, keeps it off the bolt. So this is what I'd be doing again on the tailgate of a truck. This is not me going to town in the gun room. This is me getting ready before class, making sure that these guns are gonna function because they get run really hard. And the cool thing about not being at war is we can treat these things however we want to. And I treat them well. And what I've found, and I've fired hundreds of thousands of rounds in my life through all kinds of guns. And I've very rarely had one catastrophically break, as long as you maintain a few basic parts and you keep them wet. You keep them wet. That's what I found. Guys could fill volumes in magazines talking about this stuff. Hey, he didn't scrape the carbon off of there. I don't care. I don't care. Because it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. This sucker's gonna go back in the gun and it's gonna get run hard. I kind of like to work in, as I'm doing this, like I took the bolt apart, the way my brain works is I want that bolt back together. I don't want to drop something or lose something or anything like that. So I'm gonna real quick put it all back together again now that I've cleaned it up and got it wet. And again, some of you guys are like, that's not clean. You're right, it's not clean. It's cleaner than it was though. And remember, check the gas rings. Do they need to be replaced? Sometimes guys say you got to offset these. I tell you what, they move all over.
Hey Mick, with those gas rings, if the holes are lined up, won't that create a malfunction? That's what my drill sergeant said. Yeah,
so I've heard that many a times, and of course, everybody's got an opinion. What we've tested, and I've talked to many other guys, what Drew's talking about is you've got a gas ring pack on here. That's what makes this sucker sealed inside of the bolt. The theory is that the gaps between them must be staggered. And we've found that just isn't the case. Unless you're running a really junky rifle, most of these guns can tolerate a wide swath of tolerances. We've run them with one missing, with two missing. We've even seen them working with not really any at all in there. These guns are pretty capable. That said, it doesn't like it. They don't work well. So I see I've got 3 functioning. They're so cheap. Have those in your bag just in case. Yeah, I think that's one of those things like that we talk about all the time. Everybody's told that's how it's supposed to be. And so nobody really tests to find out, you know, is that how it has to be? And what we found is...
There's no questioning the drill sergeant.
Right. And that's something he was told, and that's something that that they don't have time, right? These guys are out there training young soldiers. They don't have time to sit there and run tests like that, like we might. All right, make sure everything's copacetic. This thing is so carbonized. I'm gonna give it one more wipe and re-lube just because I can. And again, showing you what I would do sitting on the tailgate of my truck, maybe before a class. Look at that. Before a class at lunchtime, lube is life for these guns. Oh yeah, slather time. Now we'll grab this upper. I'm gonna do the same thing to this one that I did to the other and just kind of knock some crud out of the chamber here. Because anything we can get out of there, it's just anything we can get out of there. Doesn't look terrible. Like I told you on the other gun, a little wipe of the channel for the charging handle, a little bit on the star receiver. And then we're gonna address the charging handle. I've got these Radian charging handles in every gun. And you can see with this one, this is a slightly different model. Look at the wear points. Because this is a different gun, wear points are a little different here. I'm gonna make sure I got plenty of oil on the bottom because that's where I see that it might need it. Get that sucker wet. Drop that in. Ooh, that's really wet. I'm gonna knock some of the oil off of there. So always hard to do when everything's discombobulated. This will help me. There we go. So that's back together. We'll let that sit for a second. We'll address the lower end real fast. And this is not nearly as bad. I'm gonna knock some of that filth off the hammer. Just try to get some of the bits and pieces loose. Carefully send the hammer forward. Just like with that other gun, I am going to pull the buffer tube out real quick. This one's dry. That is dry. There's nothing on that. Nothing at all. Side note, these rags, go to a paint store, a hardware store, you can buy by the pound. I buy 25-pound bags of these. The ones that are used for gun cleaning, they become fire starters or go in the garbage. But I keep them in the truck, and we wash them and we reuse them. You can use them for all kinds of tasks, and they're super cheap. Clean cotton. All right, that's better. Got a little lube on there. So while this sucker's in this position, I will take my needle bottle and I'm gonna hit the littlest bit on that pin, littlest bit on that pin, littlest bit on the selector, just where it's moving. These are tiny amounts of oil. See that? Are you in good focus, Drew? Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna clean off the excess here, guys. I just the way my brain works, I'd rather it be wet than dry. If you disagree, go ahead and put it in the comments. You know, tell me why. If you're gonna tell me the same thing that we've already talked about, that everybody says about sand and dirt, I'm guessing that we probably abuse guns more than most, right? This gun alone has got 5,000 rounds through it in the last 2 months, 2.5 months, because a brother of mine used it for a class, a nephew of mine used it for a class. I lubed these pins. So they're in good shape. Same thing as we did with the other gun. Just gonna make sure I address any problem areas that I want to have lube on, that I want to make sure is gonna be corrosion free. And then I'm gonna take clean part of one of these rags and I'm just gonna wipe this sucker down. Had a good friend of mine, his name was John Strobel. He's a couple boys I grew up with, father. And I learned a lot from John. He's deceased now. He passed a few years ago. He was a hell of a dad, a hell of a tradesman. He was loved fishing, loved boating. And as a young man, I would be over there all the time and I'd ask him questions like about my 1985 Bronco, and I'd say, I'm having some issues, you know, what do you think? And he'd say, sometimes you just got to give it a bath, Mick. Sometimes you just got to give it a bath and a lube. And that's what we'd do. We'd take parts apart, you know, scrub them up real good, electrical contacts, whatever they were, clean them up, wipe them off, lube them up, put them back together again. And sometimes in that process, you'd find a part that was failed. Sometimes in that process, you would find that it just needed a bath. And that's, you know, that was John's point. So check it out. We'll do that function check just like we did. That bolt feels really good. Having that little bit of lube in the buffer tube, it really can feel it. That means more of the energy from the round is going to be able to send the bolt back rather than being expended dragging metal on metal. That feels good. So everything feels good there. We'll do a function check. Trigger back. Make sure it goes to safe. It does. I dig it. I dig it. And again, the point here, guys, isn't this is the end all be all, how to take care of your AR. The point is keep it wet, run them hard. Going through this process is just like walking around the airplane before you go on a flight. It gives you a minute or two to refamiliarize yourself with the weapon, gives you a minute or two to do a check and see if anything is out of place, out of the norm, if it needs you to address it. You might take something apart and the gun might be functioning like one of those gas rings, and you might find, geez, I'm a few gas rings shy of a properly assembled gun. Mickey with CarryTrainer.com, Drew behind the camera. I hope that maybe that shed a little bit of light on the simplicity of keeping these guns up and running. Look for the wear points, so look for the parts where the finish is getting rubbed off. Knock the dirt out, knock some of the carbon off, hit them with a good lube. Of course, we want you to use Gunfighter Gun Oil. I don't care what you use, as long as it's Gunfighter Gun Oil. And run the gun hard. Don't abuse it, and you're gonna get a long time out of them. Peace out.
That's gonna be a long video.
That's why you have to have refurbishment. It's not for the one round or the two.
Is this a Super Bowl reload or is it like the 150
That's what you're driving it for.